The idea of a growth mindset can be adapted to any different field, whether you're just hearing of it for the first time or you've been introduced to it in the past. The power that Carol Dweck often speaks of in her different videos and books can be used by teachers, students, or in any different field, as I mentioned, to really set the framework for their future. As a teacher, I view it with the education lens, and as a coach, I view it for my athletes each and every day at practice and in our games.
The idea of having a mindset when working through any goal or working to achieve something is often overlooked. Whether you view yourself as having a fixed mindset or a growth mindset, we don't take the time to think about what we are thinking, which is also an example of metacognition. The importance of taking ownership of your decisions and determining your future, rather than letting unfavorable outcomes dictate your next steps, allow you to fight through adversity in different ways. Every time we're faced with a new sort of adversity, we gain confidence on what next steps work best for us. We always hear that no two individuals learn the same way, so no two people are going to react to something in the same way. However, having a growth mindset can allow us to fight through anything. If if we take feedback and learn from it, rather than simply shutting down, we have the ability to have an unbounded potential. This also provides us with the opportunity to develop over time rather than shutting down once after failing. We all know that we fail when we try something new initially, and even when we don't, we learn from it. However, the more risks that we take, the more we learn about ourselves, and the more we learn about how we learn as individuals. I'll go into some specific examples of famous people who have done just this using the growth mindset. However, the important thing is that it can be applied to all facets of life. As a teacher, from year to year, I try new things and handle different situations in different ways. Each year, I'm learning from what I've done in the past and trying to develop something that I know will be successful in the future. As a student, each year we challenge ourselves in different ways. Some of us dealt with the last 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic in different ways. However, we can all use this as a learning experience. It would have been easy to shut down during the pandemic. However, dealing with this situation that we were given is only going to make us stronger and help us work through adversity in the future. Scott Jeffrey provided us with the 4 steps that can be used to take your fixed mindset and develop it into a growth mindset. The 4 steps provide a great framework for any individual in any field. Learning to hear your fixed mindset voice, recognize that you have a choice, talk back to it with a growth mindset voice, and take the growth mindset action. We're going to dive a bit deeper into each one of these steps and see how they relate to each individual. When I first read Scott Jeffrey's first step of learning to hear your fixed mindset voice, I immediately thought of the movie Inside Out. Additionally, I thought of the song Voice Inside My Head. It is so important to be critical of the voice inside our head, especially if we find ourselves coming from a fixed mindset past. That voice is used to going with a fixed mindset reaction to any event or any adversity that we face. In the movie Inside Out, the various different characters fight on decisions and different ways to handle things that the main character faces. If we are able to identify and be transparent with our faults, then we can continue to move forward with our growth mindset. Additionally, being open to challenging ourselves and our implicit biases is important. One thing that my school focuses on is implicit biases, whether it's with students, dealing with different teachers, with athletics, or various different activities. It's important that we are willing to admit our faults. The more we educate ourselves on what a fixed mindset looks like, the more we'll be able to adapt and react to this fixed mindset popping up in our heads. This is not something that takes place overnight, but is rather a process that will take time. It is not fair to expect yourself to go from the fixed mindset to a growth mindset within a few days. As a teacher, one of the biggest things I focus on is understanding. Understanding is a buzzword that I've always used, whether it's talking to administrators, parents, or students. Understanding the situation is important, whether it's with mathematics or on the baseball field. Understanding what's going on rather than reacting impulsively. The deeper the understanding we have, the better we can react based on our preparation. Step 2 is recognizing that you have a choice. No matter what you are working with, it's on you and it's your responsibility. You are the one making the calls on how you react to different things, and you are the one that's going to determine your next step. As a student, it took time to reach the point where you're at. You went through various classes and learned prerequisite knowledge to reach this point. It's important to keep this in mind and trust yourself. If you face some adversity, take a second and regroup again rather than reacting impulsively. Additionally, you want to use your supports. Collaboration is such a big thing in education, which kind of differs with my first point of it being on you and taking responsibility. Talk to your peers, work with one another, and see how they handle different situations. These may seem like opposites, but they work well together as long as they're used appropriately. Scott Jeffrey's third step is talk back to it with a growth mindset voice. Take that fixed mindset you've been accustomed to over the years and respond to it using this new growth mindset that you've begun developing. One of the things that I thought of initially when reading this step was Joel Embiid. In Philadelphia, we know Joel Embiid's famous line and nickname is "Trust the process." If you're going to be talking back to yourself, you're going to have to relate to your prior knowledge. Remind yourself of your past and where you come from. Understand that everything is going to take time. What can you gain from this experience regardless of how it plays out? When we try something new, it's going to be uncomfortable, and oftentimes it does not go as planned the first time. Trying a new lesson as a teacher has many different things that could happen over the course of a 50-minute class. However, we can use this as a learning experience. This is one thing that I always talk to students about who are later in their high school careers, moving into college and their futures. It is good to face some adversity early on in life. This makes you stronger and lets you feel more comfortable when you face it moving on in the future. Again, there is a positive to any negative. Rather than shutting down, remember, failure just means that you haven't achieved your goal yet. You have time to work towards this end goal. Step 4 will take time to reach. Take the growth mindset action. Again, we need to remind ourselves that this is not an overnight thing. If we've had the fixed mindset for many, many years, it's going to take time for us to develop this new growth mindset. This is a picture of Jim Valvano, whose famous quote was, "Don't give up, don't ever give up." This does not mean that we don't want to try new things and take the plunge. We should take the plunge because we should have trust in ourselves. But we want to remember that we can evaluate our decisions and be critical of ourselves. The feedback that we're providing ourselves is not going to stop us from trying something new, but rather remind us that we have just not gotten there yet. We are working throughout the process. In a typical lesson plan, there are many different stages of the lesson. However, we always have a goal in mind that's typically shown at the beginning of a class. We want to appreciate each stage of the lesson, appreciate each stage of the process, and make note of it as we move through. The message of the word "yet" is a strong one, and again, like everything we have covered during the growth mindset plan, can be applied to anything in any field. Adding the word "yet" to any negative evaluation, whether it's from ourselves or a peer, can kick off our next course of action. The thing I think about most frequently with this is my daughter learning how to walk. Initially, when she was however many months old, tummy time was a struggle. Picking up her head was a struggle. However, we continued to work on it, and she reached a point where she could hold her head up on her own. From there, crawling was the next milestone, which was a challenge at first. However, now she zips around the house. We're currently working on learning how to walk. This has been a struggle for her, being only 11 and a half months old. However, she is now able to walk around the house with her toy walker. She can also use the couch and glide along the couch with one hand. And we can see every day she's getting closer and closer to walking on her own. What we want to think about is how will the now affect then? All things take time, such as my daughter learning how to walk, a student learning how to solve a math problem, a baseball pitcher learning how to throw a changeup. There are natural supports in place for a reason, and we need to make use of these in order to utilize them as needed. Now with the internet, we have access to so many different resources at the touch of a phone. If you're unsure how to build something, you go on YouTube. If you're unsure about a different math problem, you go on YouTube. There are so many different things that we can do. Additionally, We can talk to family members. We can talk to teachers. We could talk to administrators. We could talk to each other. We could talk to someone thousands and thousands of miles across the world by simply picking up a phone and pressing the FaceTime button. As a teacher, a student, a coach, a learner, a parent, a father, a husband, there are many, many different ways that I can promote the growth mindset. However, it is up to the individual to find what relates to them best. One example that I think of many, many times as a past athlete and a current coach is the movie Blind Side, where we learned of Michael Orr fighting through adversity from being homeless in high school to becoming an NFL offensive lineman. Additionally, regarding mathematics, I think of the movie Hidden Figures, where African American women work at NASA and help design the first spaceship to go to the moon. These are two completely different examples. However, they have the same message. Adversity is fought through and a plan is created. They do not reach success right away. However, they take each step by step, and grow using their growth mindset. Children are all familiar with the show Sesame Street, and there is a song called The Power of Yet that is on Sesame Street. As a high school teacher, Sesame Street may seem a little bit too immature. However, this is something that my students are familiar with and does resonate with many of them. One of my favorite examples of the growth mindset is Team Hoyt. This is a story of a son with cerebral palsy who completed triathlons with his father. A picture of him is here on the right. We are all familiar with YouTube and falling into a YouTube tunnel. One activity that I recommend that my students do, that fellow teachers do, that my athletes do, is going onto to a TED Talk channel on YouTube and simply looking up different TED Talks that you think might resonate with you. Every TED Talk that we see talks about different adversity that is fought through. Create a Venn diagram for yourself and see some of the things that you find similar to yourself, some that you find different. In my classroom, you could see graphics such as the two that are pictured here below. It's hard to be the person who never gives up. There are 3 pictures of plants here, and I am a plant person myself. If you go into my classroom or my house, you will see many different plants set up around the room. All plants are different. All plants need different types of light, different amounts of water. However, they all are successful if you treat them appropriately. This can be applied to life in general. Also, on the right, you could see a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset diagram. Something small such as this graphic can provide us with a reminder when we're sitting in a classroom, sitting in any type of setting, and dealing with some adversity, trying to achieve a goal. Again, everything is a process. The growth mindset reminds us we have the opportunity to grow, while a fixed mindset tells us we have a limited amount of ability. I can learn to do anything I want versus I'm good at it or I'm not. I will be the first to admit that originally when I thought I had a growth mindset, this was in fact a false growth mindset. The growth mindset now impacts my work in different ways. It pushes me to take risks and go outside of my comfort zone, appreciate the small victories and use them as motivation. As a teacher early on in my career, nothing was comfortable and nothing was familiar. Although 4 years of college made me feel that I was prepared to be in the classroom, sitting in front of 30 students for 7 hours a day is an adjustment. Coaching my first baseball game was an adjustment. However, now after teaching for 6 years, I've reached a point where I am confident in my abilities. However, I am continuing to grow. I continue to take risks each and every day. However, these small successes have provided me with the motivation to continue to move forward with trying new things. I try to learn in any different setting, adapting ideas from collaborating with peers outside of my own field and within my field has made me become the teacher that I am today, as well as the learner that I believe I am. The power of the growth mindset is a big one, and again, as I've said many times, can be applied in every facet of life. It is important that we are honest with ourselves and understand that everything takes time along our journey. Constructive criticism and feedback that we receive from ourselves and from our peers can help mold us into the person that we are trying to become, no matter what we are looking into. I highly recommend looking into some of Carol Dweck's various videos, TED Talks, and articles that she has written, as well as her book, Mindset. Scott Jeffrey gave us the overview of this, which really helped set up the 4 steps to take your life and to go from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. Thank you very much.